Hi, welcome to this session on Graph Connectors for Microsoft Search. My name is Shakun Grover, and I'm a product manager on the Graph Connectors team. Today, I'm thrilled to be co-presenting this session with Vamsi and Suhail. Over to you, folks.
Hi, I'm Vamshi. I work as a program manager in Microsoft.
Hi everyone, my name is Suhail Parekh and I'm a product manager at Microsoft. I'm excited to talk to you today about the Salesforce connector for Microsoft Search.
Here's what we will be covering today. I will give you a brief overview of Graph Connectors by discussing the search and discovery challenges in organizations and how Graph Connectors can help solve them. From there, we'll move on to demonstrating some of the Microsoft built connectors for data sources like FileShare, Oracle DB, ServiceNow, and Salesforce. With that, let's get started. Let's think of a modern organization. It has tons and tons of data, whether it's in an HR system, file storage, sales data, on-prem or cloud databases. All this data, if it is living in silos, users in the organization will not be able to discover it, let alone analyze or use it. Employees of such an organization would typically spend about 20% of their time searching and gathering information to use. And so the productivity of an organization is critically dependent on connected data. This is where graph connectors can help. Microsoft Graph connectors allow you to bring in third-party or external content into Microsoft Graph, which in turn powers a number of intelligent experiences, of which the most critical one is probably search. This means you can make your external data searchable in all the endpoints that Microsoft Search powers. Not only this, you can build your own experience. For example, you can use indexing APIs to build your own connectors, or use search APIs to query content from your custom search portals or apps. Graph connectors also power Project Cortex, which can generate insights from all data sources in the organization about any topic. Project Cortex is a knowledge network in Microsoft 365, empowering people with knowledge and expertise within the apps you use every day, like Office, Outlook, and Teams. Search users can also discover trending information across sources, including that brought in by connectors, without needing to search. Last year at Ignite, we announced the preview of Graph Connectors powering search experiences. Today, we are happy to announce that the general availability of connectors for Azure DevOps, ServiceNow, ADLS, MediaWiki, Azure SQL, and enterprise websites will start rolling out over the next few weeks. In addition, Salesforce Connector is now in private preview. More on how to sign up for the preview will be covered later in this session. Pretty soon, we will also be announcing the preview of connectors for on-prem data sources like Windows FileShare, Oracle DB, MS SQL, and on-prem enterprise websites. More than 130 connectors are also available from our partners like Raytheon, BA Insight, Accenture, and Cognizant. Now that we have talked about graph connectors and how they can help break information silos, we will move on to demonstrating how to configure connections for some of these connectors and the search experience in Microsoft Search endpoints. As a part of this demo, we will see how to configure Graph Connector Agent, which is needed for on-prem connectors, how to create connections to on-prem Windows FileShare, Oracle DB, and ServiceNow, how to configure search access based on user criteria for ServiceNow, and lastly, the search experience. To go through the scenario, I will assume the role of Daisy Phillips, who's a senior associate at a private equity firm by the name Contoso Inc., and works on a team that advises Contoso Inc. on potential mergers and acquisitions. So let's start. After having built a portfolio of companies that my firm can consider acquiring, I want to research more on a company, Fabricam specifically. So I look for research reports on companies and industries, stored as PDFs and Office documents in a multitude of file shares. Next, I want to check for previous ratings and analysis for Fabricam, for which I search in an internal application powered by Oracle DB. Now that I have enough data at hand, I want to create a proposal for review. My firm stores guidelines and suggestions for creating reports in ServiceNow with access to only senior band employees and above. In this scenario, I had to search multiple systems to prepare a report on one acquisition candidate. The effort required of me becomes multifold if I have to prepare a report on the entire portfolio of companies that I have. I also fear that I might have missed out a data source which could have had more related content for my research. So I pass on this feedback to Eric Nason, who's a search admin at Contoso Inc.
Hi everyone, I'm Eric. I'm the search admin of our company. Many users in our company find it difficult to search and discover data, just as Daisy feels right now, because the data is stored in wide variety of systems. Today I'm going to solve this problem using Microsoft Graph connectors. I will create connections for top 3 data sources in our company. Couple of those are stored on-prem, which are the files stored in Windows file shares and the data stored in Oracle databases. Third one is a cloud system, which is ServiceNow KB articles backed by strong access control policy. Once I create these connections, users in our company can easily search and discover this data. As I mentioned before, I need to create connections for a couple of on-prem data sources. For this, I need to deploy a software called Graph Connector Agent to push data from on-prem to Microsoft Search indexes. Let me quickly install this software. Installation process is pretty straightforward. After installing, I need to register this agent with my tenant details. Let me quickly provide those details. And done. Now that I registered Graph Connector Agent, I can go ahead and create files and Oracle DB connections. Let me start with files. I'm right now in connectors page in M365 Admin Center. Let me add a connection. Here I see a catalog of all available connectors. I will now select File Share Connector here. Here I give name for connection, an ID, description, and next. This page asks for file share details. Let me give that. Here I see the name of the agent I already registered. I authenticate with my ID and password. The details are validated. Next. In advanced settings, I see an option to not update last access time field for files whenever they are read by the connector. Our company has backup systems which rely on this last access time property. I don't want that field to be updated by connector. I want it to be updated only when actual users open the file. So let me select this option. I also see an option to use share ACLs for access control, but we use NTFS ACLs in our company, so I'll skip this. As I said, we use NTFS ACLs in our company, so I'll select this option. I will go with default options for properties management as all of them look pretty straightforward. Refresh frequency of 15 minutes also looks good to me. So next. And here I will finish creation of connection. File connection is created now, and all the files are available for search. Let me now create an Oracle DB connection. I will go to Add, select Oracle DB. I'll give a name, ID, and description to the connection like before. Here in this page, I give database details like hostname, port, and database name. I will use the Graph Connector agent like before. Here I provide my authentication details. And next. Here I give query for connector to crawl data. Whichever rows are returned by this query are crawled by the connector. For the connector to keep a track of which rows are already indexed, there is a watermark field. I will use record ID as both the watermark and the unique key. Here I can give a query which the connector can use periodically to determine which rows got updated. Just as for full crawl, here I can give a watermark. The connector will use this to determine which rows are updated. I will use last modified column as the watermark for incremental crawl. It is okay for everyone in the organization to search for data in this database, so I'll go next. Here I need to map DB columns to those properties that I can later use to build a result layout or to create filters in SERP. So I'll quickly do that and go to the next page. Here I can tell the connector what is the column that has the content for showing in results captions. Let me select that. I can also select which columns are searchable and which are returned in the results. So let me quickly select those two. Here I can select refresh frequencies for incremental and full crawls. Incremental crawls index any new rows or any changes in existing rows. Full crawls detect if any rows are deleted. The default frequencies for both look good to me. So let me click next. All the connection details look fine. So I'll publish this connection. I finished creating connections for on-prem data sources. Now I'll create connection to ServiceNow KB articles which are hosted on cloud. Let me add a connection and select ServiceNow. I'll give the details here and authenticate. I will use default options for properties and go to next. Access control of our ServiceNow KB articles is based on usernames which are specific to ServiceNow and not AAD. So I'll select non-AAD here. I mentioned that ServiceNow articles are based on non-AAD user IDs, right? So this is the screen where I can map those non-AAD user IDs to corresponding AAD user IDs. Once I do the mapping, whenever users search for ServiceNow KB articles in, let's say, SharePoint or Office.com or Bing, they get only those articles for which they have access to. The format of usernames is different in ServiceNow and AAD. Using the section 2, I can fetch the ServiceNow usernames. In section 3, I use regular expressions to map the ServiceNow username to AAD username. Once I click on preview, I see some sample mappings where I can see ServiceNow username and verify if the regular expression worked fine to get the right AAD username. All the usernames look fine here, so let me go next. I will use default configuration for rest of the sections. Refresh intervals look fine. The connection is now published. I can see that connections are created for all the 3 data sources. Users in our company can now very easily search for this data in SharePoint or Office.com or Bing.
Now let's assume I have to research on a company called Northwind Traders. Since Contoso has adopted Microsoft Search, I will simply open Bing and search for Northwind Traders. Now, in addition to Internet search results, under the Work vertical in the tab labeled All, I can see other results related to Northwind Traders available within Contoso. In the Research Data tab, I can see files from all file shares where Office documents and PDFs on Northwind traders are there. If I look further, I can see analysis and ratings for Northwind traders from Oracle DB available right here as well. If at another point I'm working in SharePoint, I can make similar searches in SharePoint search box without having to switch out of my current context. I see a result block or cluster for research data vertical under the all vertical. I can find more results under research data vertical. Office.com is yet another endpoint powered by Microsoft Search, where on searching for a keyword like Northwind traders would show results from different data systems as well. Microsoft Search endpoints like Bing, SharePoint, and Office.com have a coherent search experience. For my requirement to find guidelines and samples on how to create a report using the data I found on Northwind Traders, I can search for Acquisition Proposal Guide right here, and based on my access permissions, I can see knowledge base articles in the result block in all tab. And then I can find more results in the ServiceNow KB vertical. So this was the end of our demo on Windows File Share, Oracle DB, and ServiceNow connectors, and search experience in different search endpoints. At this point, I would like to hand it over to Suhail to talk about the Salesforce Graph Connector.
With the Salesforce connector, your organization can now index contacts, opportunities, leads, and accounts from your Salesforce instance and make them searchable via Microsoft Search. Support for more standard objects, including cases and dashboards, is coming shortly. With search permissions honored for both Azure Active Directory and non-Azure Active Directory based identities, the connector ensures that users only see records that they have access to. Let us now step in the shoes of Michael Kang, who's a part of the sales team at Contoso that uses Salesforce for their CRM needs. He recently tried Microsoft Search in Bing and loved the unified experience to search for information from multiple enterprise sources. Since he's also the Salesforce admin at Contoso, he worked with the global admin Megan, who gave him the role of a search admin so he could set up the connector himself. Michael logs in to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center and goes to the Connectors tab in Microsoft Search. He clicks on Add. Over here, he clicks on Salesforce and hits Next. In this screen, he adds a name for the connector, a unique connection ID, and goes to the next screen. To connect and authenticate to the Salesforce instance, he will need the instance URL of the org that needs to be ingested, the client ID and client secret for OAuth authentication. To get those, he will need to create a new connected app in his Salesforce instance. He already has those details, so he simply copies over the information and hits Sign In. The first time when an admin sets up the connector, they will see a prompt from Salesforce asking them to enter their Salesforce admin username and password. He sees that the connection was successful and moves to the next screen. In this screen, Michael can decide who to give permissions for searching Salesforce records. The connector supports both Azure Active Directory and non-Azure Active Directory based identities. Since Contoso uses AAD Single Sign-On as their identity management provider for Salesforce, Michael selects that. Michael will now need to map how his organization currently maps AAD properties with the Federation ID in Salesforce. A list of available AAD properties are displayed in the dropdown. For their instance, the mapping will be done with the first name and the last name. As Michael selects those properties, he then needs to add a formula to complete the mapping to get the federation ID. He clicks on Preview to see the validation happen with some sample users and then goes to the next screen. In this screen, he can now select to assign source properties to property labels. While this step is not mandatory, having some property labels will improve the search relevance and ensure more accurate search results for end users. Here, Michael can select what source properties should be indexed so that they can show up in search results. All the source properties from Salesforce that the connector currently supports are listed here. The connection wizard by default selects a search schema based on a set of source properties. The admin can modify the schema by selecting on the checkboxes for each property and attribute in the search schema page. The schema attributes currently include search, a query, and retrieve. There is also a fourth attribute now called refine. This allows Michael to define what properties to mark to set as custom refiners or filters in the search experience. He scrolls down and sees close date as a potential candidate and selects that. After ensuring that all the relevant objects were selected, he goes on to the next screen. The Salesforce connector supports refresh schedules for full crawls currently. A full crawl finds deleted objects and users that were previously synced to the Microsoft Search Index. Any changes to security permissions in the source Salesforce org will also be honored during the next full refresh of the connector. Michael goes ahead with the 1 week and clicks on Next. Over here, finally, he reviews all the details of the connection that he wants to add and clicks on Publish. He comes back to the Connectors tab and sees that the Salesforce connector has finished crawling and it has items in the index. Next, he would need to add a custom vertical for Salesforce and some result types to render the search results in. Let's take a look at the Salesforce vertical which Michael created. You can add a name to the vertical. You would need to select a source. Over here in this screen, an admin can also set up multiple connections to configure a vertical width. In the next screen, Michael did not want to limit the scope of the vertical, so he did not select any query to further refine the vertical width. This is where Michael has added the custom filter based on the selection he made in the schema section of the connector. Clicks on Next, and that's how the vertical would be created. Next, Michael has added some result types. These result types layouts are built on adaptive card framework and allow a lot of customizations. We can see that Michael has added 3 different MRTs or result types for 3 different Salesforce objects. He's given a name for account. He selected the content source. In this screen, Michael can use any of the available properties in the layout designer. He's already created a JSON of the MRT of the result type that he wants to use, and so he puts that and clicks on Next. And very similarly, he's created result types for the opportunity and the contact objects as well. Let's take a look at how Michael and his manager Charlotte will use the newly created Salesforce connector in their daily work activities. Michael's manager Charlotte has sent him a message about a potential lead, Jordan, from a company called Northwind Traders that he should meet up with. He does not know much about this company, so he goes on MSP and does a search for Northwind Traders. He sees some details in the All tab, but he's more interested in the Salesforce details. So he goes on to the Salesforce tab. Over here, he can see a bunch of accounts being returned. The results provide easy access to further details of the related accounts that interest him as well. Michael next wants to set up a meeting with Jordan, but he does not have their contact details. So he adds in Jordan, and he can see that MSP has surfaced up the contact for him. He's happy that he did not have to put in a lot of time filtering amongst the contacts in his company's Salesforce accounts. He also notices that she is the CEO of the company, so he's motivated to get a good presentation lined up to discuss the sales opportunity. Michael next wants to see which of his opportunities are waiting at the analysis stage. He can use MSB to type something like opportunity analysis. MSB is quick to show him the relevant opportunities of his team which are waiting in the analysis stage. He can now go directly to those opportunities to analyze the requirements further, identify the opportunity value, and add other details as necessary. Michael has one more thing he wants to look up today. He wants to look up details for an account that one of his leads had told him about last month. He does not remember the name completely, but he recalls that it was an oiling importer. He searches for the query industry oil, and MSB retrieves a big list of oiling accounts he has access to. He adds in one more query for import, and this time MSB pins down on the account that he was looking for. Okay, let's take a look at one more scenario. This is Charlotte, who's a sales lead at Contoso. She uses Microsoft Search in Office and is glad to see the Salesforce results show up there as well. She wants to know the list of opportunities which were lost by her team in the past quarter. She does a search for lost opportunity and gets back a list of opportunities with stage close lost in them. She also uses the close date filter, which Michael had added, and is able to further refine the results down by the last quarter. She also wants to see how Alan, who's new on her team, is doing. So she can add in one more parameter in the query for Alan as the owner and can see now that he's lost a few opportunities. She notes down that she should set up a meeting with him to see how she can help. She loved how she could do all of this directly in Office.com without needing to go inside Salesforce. So how do you get started on ingesting and surfacing your Salesforce content in Microsoft Search? You can sign up for our Salesforce Connector preview at aka.ms/Salesforce preview, and we'll get back to you shortly on next steps.
Here are some more resources for you to learn about Microsoft Graph connectors and to stay connected. You can submit and vote for ideas in our user voice. You can share your feedback via this survey, ask us a question at Stack Overflow, or find more detailed instructions and guidance on using our connectors in Microsoft Docs here. We hope you like the demos of the latest Microsoft built connectors for FileShare, Oracle DB, ServiceNow, and Salesforce, and were able to identify how you can solve search and discovery challenges in your organization using our graph connectors. That was our session. Shakun, Vamsi, and I want to thank you for watching and listening to us today.